Thank you. Welcome back. Hopefully you have posted in your introductions and in your assignment questions discussion. I am experimenting with having my face as part of the lecture, so we'll see if it works out. Remember, we ended our last video talking about development and how it takes time. I wanted to introduce you to focus families that we'll be looking at different points during the semester. The goal of our focus families is for you to get a sense of how development can be different in different families, different cultures with different expectations, but also for you to have a chance to think about how we understand other families and what our expectations, our preconceived notions might be. Sometimes we see a person or a child and think that they're going to have a certain outcome. That's not necessarily what happens, and that's true of many of us as well. So I want to introduce you to our four families. Our families this semester that we're going to focus on are all based on real families that I know that are part of my life, who I have known for 20 years or more. And so I know a lot about their stories. Some of the names, the pictures have been changed just for anonymity. So our four families are the Averys, the Gilberts, the Gibbs, and the Dos-Sarkars. So first, let me introduce you to the Averys. This one's a stock photo because I don't have a picture of Lori when she was pregnant. But Lori and Mike, at the point that they were pregnant, or that Lori was pregnant, they are both white. They had planned for this child. It was the second family for Mike. He had 3 adult children from a previous marriage. They were middle class. They lived in Colorado. Lori was a fundraising coordinator, and Mike was a retired firefighter. The Gilberts are our second family. They are 2 fathers. Greg is African American. Peter was Latino white. They were adopting their first child. They were both in their late 20s, married, middle class, although at the time they were partners. It wasn't legal for them to be married, but luckily now it is, and they are now married. Middle class. Greg was an HR specialist, and Peter was a middle school teacher. The third family is the Gibbs. Sarah was a single mom. She was Latina and white, or is Latina and white. At the time, she was 19 years old. It was an unexpected pregnancy, and the birth father chose not to be involved at all. When she found out she was pregnant, she moved from California to Texas to live with a new boyfriend. She was lower income. She decided she would look for work when she got there. Her birth father lived there, and her boyfriend was an electrician studying to be a tattoo artist. Our fourth family is the Dos-Sarkars. They are an Indian couple. Suchi's a doctor and Aman was a computer engineer. They were very excited to be pregnant with their first child and had planned on having children for quite some time. They were in their 30s and both came to the U.S. from India as teenagers, and they were upper income at the time. So one thing to think about as we look at these 4 families, the Dos-Sarkars, the Gibbs, the Gilberts, and the Averys, is as you read these stories and look at these photos, some of which are stock photos, what do you expect will happen for these babies? How do you expect their life will unfold? Do you have expectations that some of these children will have an easy life, go to college, a hard life, that parents may struggle, or they may be faced with different biases? What comes to mind? And nothing is right or wrong. We all have a way in which we make sense of the world by trying to quickly form up ideas and conclusions about what we see in front of us. With human beings, that doesn't always work, and there'll be some twists in the lives of all of these families as we review them during the semester. We'll come back and visit these 4 families in about a month, and so you'll get to hear about their childbirth, and then eventually you'll get to hear about the whole story of what's happened to them through the years. So one thing as you think about how you reacted to the photos of those families and their stories is to think about the difference between fact, opinion, and theory. We're going to be studying a lot of theories about child development, and we'll be looking at research where there's some facts that have been found based on research that's done following very careful protocols. So a fact, and there are 4 photos of boxes here on this slide. A fact is that these 4 boxes each have 6 sides, although the one on the bottom right, you could argue it has more sides because the different drawers have sides as well. But the basic boxes all have 6 sides. That's a fact. Another fact might be that they have corners. Another fact for the one on the left might be that it is blue wrapping paper with a bow. A fact is that one of the boxes or 2 of the boxes are made out of wood, that there are red bows on another box. Those are all facts. There are opinions about these boxes. Some of these boxes you may look at and say, I don't like it at all. I would never put that in my house. I would never own that. I'd never see that. You may have opinions that some of them are beautiful, that you really like that box. You may have an opinion that the gift wrapping is well done on the photo on the left. Those are all opinions. The next is theories, and really thinking about a theory is forming an educated guess of what we think about something. So a theory might be that if somebody were holding this wooden box and it were closed, that they were going to propose to somebody, that a ring box means proposal. That's a theory that's out there. A theory might be that the gift box contains a present for someone that is ready to give. A theory might be that the box in the middle at the top with the red bows might contain objects that are special and meaningful to the person who made the box. Those are all theories. We don't know whether those theories are true or not until we actually explore and do some research. We may open the ring box and discover that it's empty, and that in fact somebody's not going to propose, but that's the ring box that somebody used to propose 20 years ago. We may open the gift box and discover that it's empty and it was just done for display. When you're looking at children and observing children, you want to really be careful about where you're slipping from fact, opinion to theory. When we do observations, we will be observing from fact. What can you actually see and hear as if you were a camera? You will make theories based on these facts. I theorize that this child is doing this and this and this according to developmental theory, and you'll connect it to the readings. You want to be very, very careful about putting your opinions in there. What you think is cute may not be what somebody else thinks is cute. So that word is a very loaded word. There are others too, like aggressive or beautiful or sweet, adorable, all those emotion type words. But other opinions are happy or sad. Those are theories or opinions. We don't know a child is happy. A child who is laughing might indeed be very sad or very upset. So we'll be looking more at fact, opinion, and theory as we move through class. As we're studying child development, remember that developmental study is a science. It's based on theories that these people make based on their observations, their understanding of child development, their readings of other theorists. They take these theories and they gather data through research. And from that data, they analyze it, figure out what the data shows, how many children reacted with fear when the stranger entered the room, how many children didn't react when the stranger entered the room. That's all data. Then they analyze all that and they use some critical thinking and they figure out, what does this data possibly mean? And they often form new theories and then do new research. And so that loop continues as we discover more about children. It's really important that they're using sound methodology when they're doing this research. Some research that you will look at in psychology or child development doesn't have that sound methodology. So we don't know whether we can really depend on the research that we're seeing or not. Empirical means that it's based on data. We want to make sure that the research we're looking at is based on solid data, that it's not based on somebody's idea. Empirical evidence is followed by applications. It's not theoretical. Empirical is based on facts. This percentage of children reacted in this way. So there are numbers behind it. The scientific method means that a scientist in child development or psychologists, all those experts are scientists. They ask a question, then they do background research and figure out, what does somebody else already know about this question that I have? I should understand that first. From there, they construct a hypothesis. All children at the age of 2 are forming autonomy and wanting to do things by themselves. That may be a theory or a hypothesis. They test their hypothesis by doing experiments. They go observe a lot of 2-year-olds and see how many of them are insisting on doing things themselves. They analyze their data and they figure out what percentage of children showed the behavior they were looking for, and then they draw a conclusion. They report their results and say this was true, this was not true, and then they often go back and ask another question and do another level of research. When we're looking at scientific method, in order to say that something is most likely true, we want to see multiple types of research that come to the same conclusion. So we'll be looking at that as we read the textbook, think about it critically, and think about this process that we go through. When a scientist conducts an experiment, and especially with human beings, they start with many participants, and they separate them into 2 groups, the experimental group and the comparison or control group. They're doing something often to the experimental group that they don't do to the control groups. This is one type of research method. The experimental group will get some type of special treatment. Maybe they're put into a classroom with certain types of materials or a certain type of teacher. And then the other group will get no special treatment and they'll be in the place that they are. So they may do research where they go into different preschools. In some of the preschools, they bring in lots of wooden materials. In other preschools, they leave them the way they are. And then they want to look at, do children interact more with the materials, create more structures or creative output, and they have a way of measuring creative output. And they'll measure both traditional settings and settings where they've put this new material in there. So that's one way they may do special treatment. Then they look for, is there a significant change? In this case, creative output. Is there a significant change in the children that have had this experimental condition put on them? So that is one of the processes, and a very common one that's used when doing research in child development as well as in other types of science. There are ethics, because what the research we're going to be reading about is really researching on humans and especially on children. And it took a while for those ethics to develop. So our code of ethics is a set of moral principles that members of a professional group are expected to follow. It means that they're meeting ethical standards, and it's very important, especially when we're working with young children. There were some unethical research methods you'll read about early on in our textbook when it talks about the history of psychology or the history of child development. For example, there was research done with rhesus monkeys where they took the baby monkeys away from their parents, put them away in isolation in a cage, and then measured their reaction to fearful things like a toy monkey clapping cymbals. That would be considered unethical today, whereas those ethics weren't always in place before. So be aware that some of the research you're reading from the past, from the 40s and 50s, may not have had the same ethical standards applied to them. One of the things we're going to explore in this class is nature versus nurture. What is the balance between what we got from our genes, our DNA, that's nature, and what we get from our environment, our family, our siblings, our friends, our schools, all those things that happen to us during a lifetime, our environmental conditioning, and how do the genes and the environmental conditioning work together to create who we are? And we know that both have a huge impact. Neither one is necessarily more powerful than another. They each have their input into who we are. And so that's one of the things we'll look at, is that nature-nurture balance. So one of the things that I think about nature-nurture balance is my other sibling, Rebecca. About a year and a half ago, we did genetic testing. My sister Beth, who you can see in the middle of this photograph with the level there, and in the photograph with me up above. And then there I am next to her. On the other side of her is my half-sister, Rebecca. When we did genetic testing, we discovered that my dad, and you can see him here in the photo with the 4 adults and the 3 children, my dad had an affair with Rebecca's mom, who's the woman here in the red shirt with the short hair with a curl flip. My mom is in between the 2 of them. We discovered suddenly a new sibling, a new member of our family. And Rebecca discovered all these old photographs. And in those old photographs, we saw the 3 of us as children playing with her parents before her birth. which was a shock to all of us. We didn't know that she existed. There's photos down on the bottom left of Rebecca taking what we think are her first steps between her mom and my mom, who were very good friends at the time. Now, the reason this relates to nature versus nurture is that one of the things Rebecca and I have discovered in the past year and a half is that she and I are more alike than my sister and I. We only share half of the same amount of genes that my sister and I share, but she and I think alike. We work alike in the world in the same way. We even look more like each other than my full sister and I. And so this, for me, really changed my idea of nature versus nurture. I'm going to have another video coming later in the module, so I'm going to stop here, and you can go back and work on your discussions. Make sure to read Chapter 1 and do the Chapter 1 segment on the online learning system. Those are going to be the next steps I want you to take in the class. And then after the next video, we'll get into a discussion about Chapter 1. So engage in the materials, read what's there, get some information about this first chapter. Text me on Canvas in the inbox, email me there if you have questions, or post in the assignment questions discussion. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you more online.